I recently had the chance to sit down with Batman the Animated Series director Kevin Altieri and storyboard artist Brad Rader to talk about one of their best episodes, Feet of Clay Part 2. We put together a DVD commentary style recording, and you can listen along at home while watching the episode. All you need to do, dear viewer, is press play when I say so. Now, one thing to note is that we recorded this over Zoom, and Zoom is a fickle mistress. But in this case, it's the face cam that is completely out of sync with the rest of the audio. So I'm afraid I've had to cut it out. I will flash up some footage though, so you can at least see Kevin and Brad so you know what they look like. So with that out of the way, let's get ready to listen to the commentary track. Press play in 3, 2, 1, now. Hello and welcome to another Batman the Animated Series episode commentary track. Today we're looking at Feet of Clay Part 2 and I am joined by Brad Rader and Kevin Altieri. Brad, please introduce yourself.
I'm Brad Rader. I was a storyboard artist on the Batman animated series between the beginning, and I dropped out after Mask of the Phantasm. So Feet of Clay Part 2 was one of the episodes I storyboarded parts of.
I was Kevin Altieri. I was the director of this episode, and I did a ton of the storyboards myself. And luckily, I had Brad working for me and Mike Gogan.
Oh. Yeah, and I've posted a lot about those storyboards, and they're just fantastic.
And I just want to say, telling people come in that this particular episode, I was told that we have to cut back on expenses. And the script's got to cut back, and everything's got to be much simpler, much simpler. Everything's got to be simpler. And then I get this script, and then I get this script. And this is anything but simple.
Yeah.
You know, but to give Warner Brothers and Alan Burnett and Bruce and Eric credit, you know, they totally they hooked us up. Well, I was originally supposed to be working with ACOM, like the first episode, first part, and they realized that this has got to be something else. And we got TMS, which is some of the best animation you can possibly get at this time.
Oh yeah, especially we'll get to the last act, won't we? But already it's so much better than that part 1 recap.
Well, also, and like the things we did. I kind of got carte blanche to change the script.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this, which I believe was you, Brad, right?
Yeah.
But I think it was you. But instead of having Bruce Wayne go back to the Batcave and get the Batmobile and start driving around town, we just had him change in the back seat.
Yeah. It's much quicker and much simpler than going back to the Batcave and investigating and umming and ahhing about what should be done.
Yeah. And I got complaints because it's like Alfred had to have another costume change. I think he looks great as the chauffeur's uniform.
Yeah. It's a great outfit.
And I remember handing out this was pretty difficult, but I actually felt bad about giving Brad the talking head scenes because I knew he would do them so good.
Mm.
And Brad actually said to me, "Oh, that's okay. I like doing talking head scenes."
Well, Hitchcock did talking heads all the time. He did actual set pieces out of them.
Yeah. No, and well, you look here, and it's like, this is kept alive. And finally, we get to know why germs is called germs. You know, he has these phobias.
Well, it was alluded to in part 1, but it wasn't foregrounded, so to speak.
Yeah. Mm. Whereas with like just the fact that he uses a handkerchief on the door handle, this guy's, he's like Howard Hughes, after the accident.
He's also, I didn't realize at this time that we seemed to be based off of, what's that guy? He was in Laura. He plays like the critic who's fixated on the Laura character.
Oh, I know you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about, I'm blanking on the name.
Yeah. Like, look at that. That's like such great storytelling, Brad, where you go
Yeah.
from close up and they tell you, I've heard this a million times, you can't do that. It's a smash cut,
Well,
but
I not only do it, but I do it repeatedly. It's
yeah,
from cut on close-ups, cut on close-ups.
yeah. And it's like, it's a brilliant style. It's like, once it happens, you know, everyone's like, oh, well, of course that works, but no, it's like they argued about that. I had to, get this one through
Huh.
because, and that's like such a nice touch.
Yeah.
Watch
Speaking
it.
of nice touches, sorry to interrupt, but Brad, I really love that little bit of human acting there with Teddy patting Clayface's back, and then he looks at his hand, sees there's some residue, and wipes it off just casually. So subtle.
Well, it got good animation. I mean, one of the things that hurt part one was there was similar kinds of subtle touches that ACOM just couldn't handle.
Yeah. No, it's a shame. And I love that.
Yeah.
Teddy, it's like, Teddy, this guy is no good for you. This guy is no good for you. He doesn't care about you.
Yeah.
Well, well, we'll get to it later. My previous one big beef about the episode comes at the very end, but we can save it for then.
Yeah. And this is all, this is all inventions, and that's like awesome. Great. And I'll say this, I'm going to gloat as a fanboy. I'm sorry, all you people out there, but you didn't get to see Ron Perlman perform. And I did.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah,
I love that line. It's just so layered.
yeah. And he's got Teddy driving him around, you know. Yeah. And you see that posture. It's like, that's so Clayface, Matt Hagen. He's such an
This is where your stuff takes over, right?
Yeah. So Brad leads up to him smothering, and then
Right.
I take over. I took over the first fight, the first revelation of Clayface. The Bat Star.
Don't see that often.
I like that hitting on the opposite wall.
Yeah. No, and it's like, again, this is the kind of thing where you draw this in a storyboard and you time it with a stopwatch and all that. And so rarely do things work. And this sequence right here, the subtlety in the animation, I had no right to expect it. And I took this sequence myself because this is the one sequence in the script that Alan Burnett insisted that I had to do. You have to do this one for me. Like the pounding of the wall. And again, none of the backgrounds or anything were, none of this existed. We just had to make it up on the fly.
Yeah.
Like
Clifton Webb.
that. Yeah, Clifton Webb. We had
Okay.
no right to expect this to work. None at all. And that. And this is where By doing this whole sequence here, we actually cut out like about 7 pages of script. Not the seawater, but the cop.
Got to admit, it's simpler.
Yep. And it's exciting, I think.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, what would you do if you had these powers? And that's another thing that Alan Burnett made me draw. Pulling a chunk of his cheek. I was like, man, you are sick. It's so mean.
That was a really nice drawing on the Batman down shot with the
Mm.
cape when it's
Thank you.
Well, thank you, TMS.
Yeah, I know. And I couldn't ask for more. And that's another thing Alan Burnett insisted on. Just he reacts without even thinking.
Mm. Just makes it a bit more obvious, doesn't it?
And again, thank you, TMS. I mean, I boarded it, you could do it, but God knows what would happen if the ACOM had.
I dread to think.
Okay. And the whole thing about this fight is that, Batman, like, he really doesn't know what to expect at any moment. Now he thinks he's got it.
So this whole sequence here, I've heard you tell this story before, Kevin, but this is entirely different to the original script, isn't it?
Yeah, in the original script about right now, Batman would be climbing out of the building and following Clayface down the street, dragging him behind. Again, this is an invention that we just like we wanted it to be horrifying, and yet it's just like using single images like that. And it tells the story so much quicker, and it's so much more dramatic.
Yeah, and it's shocking as well.
Yeah, and Germs he's just insane now. He'll never recover from that.
And now I take over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you'll notice one thing that I did not do a retake on. Well, I'll talk about it in a little bit. But Brad, this is like Teddy. It's like, I don't know, Brad, that's like just brilliant. And the fact that you have him come out with this whole chicken dinner, it says so much about their relationship. And it also establishes, like, when there are Disney villains, the thing that I love about this is that, yes, it's tragedy. It's a tragic thing. It's like what happens to Matt Hagen is terrible, but at heart, he is a rotten bastard.
Right.
He's not a good guy.
Not a nice guy.
He's not a nice guy at all. And the way he treats Teddy is like really. Oh, I love this. It's like no one's looking at him. And you'll notice that in the room here, in the world of Batman, television is always black and white. TMS took the color on themselves.
Yeah.
Because you'll see pink backgrounds and things like that on the TV scanners. And there's just no way that I was going to call retakes.
Mm.
Said it may be incorrect, but it's beautiful.
Well, I like the way you cut from a match cut from the image on the screen and then to the real thing out in the audience.
Yeah.
Mm.
And this is you, right, Brad? Yeah.
Yeah. Mike doesn't take over until Act 3.
Yeah. This is great. Hey, that's how. Like, it's very Brad Rader. And you'll notice that those are two Alex Toth designed characters.
No, they were Bernay.
Oh yeah, Jordy Bernay. That's
Bernay.
right.
They were Torpedo and his main henchman.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they let us get away with that. I guess people like quality controlling didn't know the reference.
And then
This is Mike.
I gave this to Mike Gogan because, and we had a lot of discussions about it, and I'm just going, Mike, you just got to go for it. just go for it. I know we had the talk. They told us we don't have this kind of animation. We don't have the budget for this, et cetera, et cetera. But I just said, Mike, I'm not even going to show this board to anyone. I think only Bruce and Eric saw this board.
What? I don't know how he could have done it simpler.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
You know, and I loved it. But Batman's never looked better. And I kind of like Batman in these, the way that the color schemes that TMS would use, so wonderful. Like I love how the background of Batman kind of glows with that blue. Yeah. And again, this is all invention. Mike's going like, what do you do? It's like, what's he gonna do? I don't know. One on an axe with his hand or something. I don't know. Spikes, whatever. So this is pure Mike. He turns himself into a rolling ball of death. And I love this where it's like he's like the Blob too.
Yeah.
Also, I'm sort of like flashing on the Terminator cyborgs from the Heart of Steel, using a lot of the. It's not the same, but it's similar.
Like this, that thing with his hand. And Hagen's actually kind of happy about everything now.
Just knocking his arms off. Oof.
Yeah. Just, yeah. And then he just, again, I don't even remember what the script had him doing, but this is just so mean and nasty.
Yeah.
So, were the voice actors looking at this animation, or
No.
were they?
Well,
So
they
the animation.
there was an ADR session where the gas.
I was struck by Batman's gasp of air when Hagen lets him go.
Yeah, that's
That was like
ADR session.
too perfect.
Yeah. And it's like just that thing where he blows out a little bit of air. This is everything's just now it's out of Batman's control,
Mm.
There's nothing you can do. In this animation, I Oh my God. It's like I have no right to expect this, Like Mike could draw it, but get him to animate it? Oh my God.
It's going to sound like a broken record, but this is so good. Oh,
And that, well, it doesn't look like him anymore. And this is where, at the ADR session, just to answer your question, Brad, John Perlman at this moment went, "Oh my God, I'm naked." He did say that. Yeah. Sad, tragic. And Lucius Fox has been in the hospital. We got the same jacket and scarf back on.
Well, they're being simple.
Yeah. And this is pure Brad Rader, people.
mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think I told you anything. You just did this on your own. It just reacts.
Must have been working off to something.
I don't know. Like, what the hell's that? Who's that? And I kind of insisted on this.
Yeah, well,
Pretty good.
I made like the Hagen, look sad instead of laughing maniacally.
Yeah. But no,
But
he
I hadn't seen part one. If I'd seen part one, this would have been totally like in keeping with that.
I ended up having to draw this. Brad was like, "No, she should be sad. She's saying goodbye to Teddy." And I'm like, "No, he's saying goodbye to Teddy and laughing at him behind his back."
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, any final thoughts as the credits roll? What a wonderful episode.
Well, again, I'll say it's like I'm just the level of animation that we got out of TMS. It's like, and this was after we got the talk and I got the script mainly because they were Warner Brothers was freaking out over how much the shows were costing. I don't think that our episodes, Brad, were really over budget. I don't believe so. But if you remember, there were times when there was shows that were not ready, too many retakes to be sent back, so they didn't go on the air. And there was actually a couple of weeks where it was almost, because it was on 5 days, 5 times a week when it was originally broadcast on Fox. And there was a couple of weeks where it was like Bruce actually came into my office and went, "Well, it's the Kevin Altieri week," because it would be like, last laugh, POV, Cat in the Claw, just one after another were all our episodes because they were prepared, they were ready, and the ones that were scheduled were not.
Yeah.
But a lot of the studios overseas, were not really prepared for this level of animation. And all of them are used to doing much less. So, anyway.
Well, I actually wasn't aware of any. I don't know that I ever heard that we were supposed to like try and bring this stuff in a less complicated way. I mean, that wasn't ever communicated to me. And hats off to you for not letting shit flow downhill.
Yeah, well, yeah, I take it all on my shoulders.
That's right.
It's like, and this is the episode where Marty and Michael wanted me fired when the animation came back. They were trying to get me fired. They used this, and they used this animation. I think they showed it to Alan Burnett for one, and they showed it to Gene McCurdy, and they both went like, I really like it. It's like, I don't think we're going to fire him. But don't you see, the electricity doesn't work without that scene and blah, blah, It's like, well, I don't know. It's like we had to fit it into 22 minutes, and that's all there was to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we had to come up with clever ways, and basically him manifesting his powers, in entertaining ways. And again, he's not instead of turning into an object and hiding, he's turning into people, and then he turns in, and then basically, like by the end, he embraces being a monster. He's having a good time, fighting Batman. He's laughing at him, and I got this thing worked out pretty good. It's like,
yeah. I mean, one of the things that I don't think gets acknowledged enough is that in part one, he is technically already Clayface. He's got that formula that allows him to change his appearance for 24 hours. So that's just like the comic book one. Okay, he's not a mud man, but essentially he is Clayface. He's doing villainous things. He's doing terrible things.
Yeah.
It's just he adapts and he evolves and he gets transformed into something even worse.
Yeah. No, and it's one thing I would well, again, part one, Dick was screwed by having to have ACOM, so there's only a certain level. But there are certain things that I would have changed. Like, for instance, Matt Hagen should have been a lot tougher than he was, because Germs holds him down. And Germs, the guy with all phobias, it's like Germs wouldn't have touched him. Germs would have done something else. Like, he picks up a pillow to bump off Lucius Fox. He doesn't intend to touch him. It's like, and it has an assassin. But the whole thing, it's like, we've had this discussion, and we talked about it, because I always insisted, and I would get in trouble because I would go and say, I want some more character designs. Like, for instance, in POV, I had Tony Salmons and Glenn design longshoremen so that both Batman and Montoya would have really tough opponents to fight against. And in many other episodes, and in part one, Matt Hagen's overcome by a couple of guys. It's just guys, wearing suits. They're not tough. They're not, they're not martial artists. They're not, there's nothing really special about them. It only takes a couple of them.
Yeah.
And then there's that goddamn stupid bat plane. The Batwing.
You don't like the Batwing. I love it, man, but I get why you don't like it, because you're an
great design. It's a great design, but I go and I look at it, and how much better would it have been? Yes, the Batplane, I think, was in this script too. The Batmobile was in this script. We just didn't use it. We did Batman's on foot, which I think adds a lot of atmosphere to it, makes it much more film noir. Imagine in part one, if instead of flying around with the guy suspended from a mechanical arm, Batman just walks to the window, hangs the guy out. Long drop. And he just holds the guy there. And then when he lets go of him, there's a balcony right below, and the guy just falls into a bush, or there could be a pool right below, as it was in the script. Instead of flying around the city, I think it takes away from the acting and stuff too. So, I mean, that's what I would have done. Just kept it, kept it more grounded, and that would have made it much more of a horror film, I think. Like this second part, it's yes, we're doing Hitchcock, yes, we're doing film noir, but it really is a horror film too.
Yeah.
This and Hagen is a monster. Again, I can't say that enough. And just the way that he treats people that he supposedly loves, Teddy. That's his best buddy. And look how he treats him. It's and when Hagen shows up in the sequel, that all is kind of dropped. Strictly now a tragic character. And I don't think he ever would have not been a bastard. He's just a narcissist actor, the worst of the worst kind. Everything about this episode is he's just always talking about himself. It's like him getting back to what he was, getting those roles again. It's like Sunset Boulevard, except he's not this horrid old lady. He's like this horrid clay monster. He's still concerned. It's like look what happened to you, man, and you're still, and it's like. And then he starts enjoying himself. By the end of the show, it's like he's just accepted the fact that he's a monster. And again, like I said, he purposefully takes on the form of a pretty girl, walks around purposefully to get behind Teddy and to laugh at him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. And then, the next time we see him, he's like, oh, I'm a tragic character. And he's got a girl that feels sorry for him, trying to help cure whatever.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting, Mudslide, that episode, because she kind of makes this suit for him that makes him look like an Oscar.
Yeah.
And he specifically says, I can't live like this. I can't, be trapped in a suit living off chemicals. I kind of read that as him saying that she's kind of forcing him into a more heteronormative mold, and he's like, I can't live like this, I don't like girls.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, when I have critiques and stuff, that's not saying that's a damn good episode.
Yeah.
Mudslide is a good episode. Eric did a good job on that.
Yeah. I don't suppose you've seen it, have you, Brad?
No, I haven't.
No,
I listened to your commentary about it, your YouTube video about it, though. It was a good YouTube video.
Thank you.
Yeah, and actually, here's another story. I'm sitting there working on whatever episode I'm working on, and Bruce comes around the corner. He's smiling. Come here. Want to see something? He's like, yeah. Got a bit of animation to show you. Okay, and he's smirking. And I go in there, and there's Eric. He's sitting down in the chair. He's smirking. And they pull out the VHS, and they go, so just a second, and they key it up. Okay, now watch this. And there's Clayface. All I see, they play just the scene where it's like Clayface gathers Batman into him, and he's going, yeah, I can hear his heart. It's like he's slowing down now. And all of a sudden, bat claw comes flying out of his neck. And I'm like, and those guys, they just wanted my reaction, and they just started cracking up. He goes, you should see the look on your face. And it's like, yeah, man, that's fucking awesome. It's like, anyway, there's another story.
Spoilers, Brad, sorry. If you ever watch it.
Oh, well.
I spoiled it for you.
Yeah, it's interesting because they've said before, I think it was Eric Radomski said he liked using Clayface because you could do all sorts of horrible things to him because he's not, a human being. So blow a hole in his head or knock his arms off or whatever.
Yeah.
Fall off a building and turn into a pile of goop.
Yeah. No, anyway. I wish we could do another Clayface, but c'est la guerre.
So, Brad, did you have any final thoughts?
No.
No.
Mhm. I don't. I I thought if the animation had always been like this, it would have been wonderful. But it's almost never was.
Mm.
Well, true.
Um, yep.
True, but that's why it makes it a standout. You
Yep.
know, like, could you imagine if the mechanic was done or the last laugh was done by TMS? You know,
Yeah.
but there were studios like there were other studios other than TMS, like Harley's Holiday that was done in Korea. And I couldn't expect better animation really in Showdown.
Oh yes.
That was Don Yang too, and that was done at Sunmin and another couple of studios in Korea. And it's like really, that sword fight. Oh my God, it's like I could not expect better. Like, I was very disappointed in the sword fight in Demon's Quest Part 2. It's fine, the animation's good. It's TMS, but it's TMS farming it out, in different places. So the level of that sword fight between Ra's al Ghul and Batman didn't quite have the zing, but in Showdown, there was with the Bowie knife versus saber fight between Arcady Duvall and Jonah Hex. I couldn't ask for better animation. Wonderful job. So there's good and there's bad, and that's kind of how it's always been.
Mhm.
And you just deal with the bad animation as best you can. And it's not a question of just calling retakes either, and that's another thing I'll say about Part 1. There's only so many retakes you can call because it has to go on the air at a certain point. It really has to go on the air. And that was another thing about having to ship, was because there was a Part 1 that was already happening. So Part 2 had to happen now. So it had to go out. So part of the reason why a lot of the changes in the script that we did to the show that went off script went through was because this one really had to be shipped out, and it was very, very little. I got very little argument leaving.
Well,
They were complaining when it came back. But
you did ask me for my thoughts, actually, and my thoughts was one of the things that I always tried to avoid was, and Kevin sort of alluded to this, is Batman shouldn't be given a hard time by regular. Hold on.
Those dogs again.
Regular run-of-the-mill thugs. I mean, it's like the Clifton Webb character and the guy with the headphones.
Yeah,
would have, he would have taken them out both out with one punch.
Yeah.
And I, instead of Batman, that whole fight scene in Act 1 was just like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how. We for some reason I was never called upon to do that in the episodes I was storyboarding. I mean, we didn't. That was never a feature of the Kevin Altieri episodes. It was like pointless extended fight scenes with random run-of-the-mill thugs.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I would observe that in other directors' episodes and be going, I'm glad that there was not called upon to me to storyboard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, but that was, there's no question. I mean, to save money and stuff, I think most of the other directors just pull already existing character designs, what they thought looked like a criminal. Whereas, I don't know, maybe you got to be East Coast Italian to understand what a criminal looks like. And there's just like guys that just are walking around. You go like, man, you don't want to mess with that guy. It's like he just looks like he'll tear your head off. And that was kind of like what we wanted Batman to fight. It's like yeah. I mean, I just go like Matt Hagen, just being overcome by those two guys, and just those two guys was, I don't know. I mean, maybe if they knocked him out, clobbered him from behind and he fell on the floor, and then they poured the goop on him, the renew you. That might have worked for me, but yeah. Just Germs holding him down, and this other guy, oh, here, I'll pour this on him. Hold still. It just, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a dumb plan as well, because they just dumped his body in a car behind their building. So imagine he had died. The cops would turn up. They'd be like, who's in this car? Oh, driver's license says Matt Hagen. And he's parked behind Daggett's office. I wonder who did it.
Yeah. Well, it's like Teddy's got to be able to find him.
No, yeah, true.
No, yeah, again, I would have done it, film noir, something. Like they would have put him in his car and the car would roll downhill and crash or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
Something. Anyway, not to disparage part one, it was the main problem with it was ACOM. So
yeah, very true.
And the Batwing.
Well, we'll agree to disagree on that one. I love the Batwing. Please don't cut ties with me, Kevin. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So, Brad, I had a question for you. So, I'd heard Kevin previously say that when he handed the sections to this episode to you, he said, "Oh, Matt Hagen reminded you of an old boyfriend you had." Did you put any of yourself into Teddy, or is that just me like reading into things too much?
Well, I put something of myself into every character that I storyboard.
True. I just remember you telling me, Brad. Oh, this reminds me of.
I can't figure out which one he would have been. It's weird how like almost 30 years later, it's like I don't remember stuff, or I remember stuff differently.
It's like, but you told me it's like, oh, brother, this reminds me of so and so. I don't even remember who it was.
Okay, I don't know. Could be. I don't remember now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I obviously I had sympathy for him.
Yeah.
The same kind of sympathy. Oh God, why are you wasting your time on this schmuck?
And I don't think it's ever been done better in in Saturday morning animation. Up to that point, I never saw anything like that.
No,
never.